the sound that's normally. Hello. Am I on, Tony?
Cam, is he on? Yes, you're on, sir.
Hi. Great. It's Dr. Steve Hassan. Thanks for joining my live stream. We're doing a different head controller for this than we usually do, so it's a learning process. But thank you, Tony and Cami and Jim and everybody else. So it is Wednesday, February 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern, and so much more horrible news happening. So I'm just going to talk a bit, and then we'll start taking questions from all of my listeners. The last thing I heard, I just finished a presentation, so I'm not up on the latest, but the last thing I saw was Trump was calling Zelensky a dictator, which is shocking to so many people, except people like myself and Dave Troy, who just posted an article on America 2 News, his blog, about how Russia recruited Donald Trump decades ago, something that I put in the Cult of Trump book, Chapter 7. And unfortunately, the American public has just not gotten the correct information from their media sources for a really long time. But I understood this relationship back when he was the president before Biden. I spoke with people who knew that Susan Wiles was a paid lobbyist for Putin and Xi before she orchestrated the 2016 Trump presidency. And she is now chief of staff for this round. And all of these horrible, unqualified actors are being put in place. Hegseth and Bondi, and I'm reading that Patel may get confirmed as head of the FBI. And we're looking at the dissolution of the United States of America at the moment. And I was listening to George Conway, who kindly wrote the foreword to the re-release of The Cult of Trump, about how the GOP has become a cult party. And in fact, Trump has been asking everyone to swear loyalty to him and to agree with the lie that January 6th was not a violent insurrection coup, which it was. And we know that Trump has pardoned all of these people who are, in jail for their crimes, attacking police. So if you're shocked about the Russia information, I urge you to go to my Substack. I have a 2-part interview with Craig Unger, who wrote American Compromat, and Yuri Shvets, who was a former KGB official who emigrated to the US when the Soviet Union fell apart. And Yuri, on the interviews with me, said, I was much higher up in the KGB than Vladimir was. And yes, we recruited Donald Trump. And it was policy to recruit any American businessman we could get to come and visit the Soviet Union. So what I want to say to my listeners is I'm not going to self-censor. I'm not leaving the country. I'm in active resistance. I just reached out to a very interesting woman, Erica Chenoweth, who has a book on active resistance. She has a TEDx talk that I loved, and I'm going to interview her for a future podcast about her book. But I want to say that she did research and talked about how if we can get 3.5% of the population of the United States of America to get involved in active resistance. And I'm not talking about doing anything violent. I'm talking about real activism, including street protests and other forms of resistance. 3.5% of the American population is not a small number of people. We're looking at 11 million. But if we can get 11 million people, we can take steps to undo this dictatorship that is being installed, this coup that's being implemented on us to strip us of a strong federal government. And for those folks who don't understand history, the Soviet Union was in a Cold War with the United States for a really long time. The Soviet Union fell apart. Putin seized power. He did a false flag, instructing his people to blow up Russian citizens, to blame it on the Chechens so he could help assume power for himself. This is a bloodthirsty assassin dictator who murdered his principal rival, Navalny, who bravely went back to Russia to show and demonstrate active resistance. And Putin has been using his war on Ukraine, a unilateral assault on Ukraine, in two steps. 2014, I believe, as well as a couple of years ago. But what people need to understand is that there's a reordering of power in the world, and Russia and China don't like America being a superpower, to oppose them, to side with our NATO allies, to oppose the authoritarian moves that Putin has. And I really believe knowledge is power, and it's better to be in control of your own mind-body relationship. Don't overdo it. Don't overdose on toxic news, but to really be focused on the fact, if you believe in human rights, which includes women's rights, gay rights, trans rights, indigenous rights, black rights, all minority rights, rule of law, the Constitution, then we need to make a priority to learn what we need to know. And if you've been following me for a while, you've been hearing me talk about how brainwashing doesn't erase the person's authentic self, and how I believe many people got lied to, manipulated on social media and other media platforms to believe that the GOP was going to serve their best interests and not the fossil fuel corporations like the Kochs and the countries that are fossil fuel based, and the billionaire tech bros, including Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos. But here we are, and it looks like they want to gut all of our protections, to protect water, to protect the climate, to protect education, and so really, I'm calling on everyone to join the active resistance. Do it in community so you don't feel isolated, and we need to teach all who are willing to learn how to reach out to family, friends, neighbors who voted for Trump, who are now witnessing things that are very upsetting to them, and not shame them, not call them names, all of the things that people block them, mute them, but actually engage with them as fellow human beings, building rapport and trust, apologizing if you need to, and figuring out how do we work together for planetary survival. planetary survival, because you know what? We're all in one big complex system on planet Earth. And contrary to what Musk is saying, we're not going to Mars in 20 years with 5 million people in 20 years to Mars. Uh, Not going to happen. And I just posted something from a month ago from David Pakman, where he was citing a Sam Harris interaction with Musk when Musk was making him $1 million bet that there wouldn't be a total of 35,000 COVID cases at the beginning of the pandemic, and Musk just didn't understand the nature of pandemics or numbers. And he lost the bet, but I don't think he gave the $1 million to a charity of Sam Harris. But the point is we have someone who's considered to be one of the wealthiest people on the planet who's gutting our systems. He's been given permission to go in and access all of our computer systems and data systems. And frankly, I think they want to do what Greg Epstein wrote about in his fine book, Tech Agnostic, for MIT Press. They want to create a super system that's higher and more powerful than governments. They certainly don't want regulation. And they worship things, these ideologies like transhumanism, long-termism, accelerationism, and crypto. And again, do we want the US dollar to continue to be the world's foremost currency, or do we want to lose that power? Do we want Trump to to dismantle the Fed and all of our systems? I don't think so. I mean, I have money that I've saved for my retirement. I would like to have that. I also have Social Security and Medicare. I would like to keep that too, and not give more tax cuts to billionaires who already have corporations that are not paying their fair share of income tax, but they're getting billions of dollars from the US government for subsidies, including fossil fuel corporations are still getting money from the federal government. So I can go on, but I'm wanting people to have hope, to build communities locally, but also to network. And I'm a big believer in those of us who've experienced the loss of our freedom by being in a mind control group, who've gotten out and are living a great life. I want us to amplify and share our stories, and I want to organize messaging and training programs. I would like to do a course on talking with somebody who is a true believer in the Trump thing. But let's start with all the people who've were voted for Trump and were believers in the GOP who were against the unconditional pardons of all the January 6th violent people. Let's support police. Let's start with contacting people we know who are law and order people and ask them with curiosity and respect, hey, what do you think about the news of what we're hearing? And do you think that Russia is a human rights supporting country or a dictatorship that wants to destroy our country? And for those people who were happy that the United States went to war against Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, do we want anyone that supports the Nazis to have power in the United States? I don't. So I could go on and on. It's 1:15, so I think I'm going to ask for comments and questions. And I'd like to also give a shout out to Kate Whitsome, who is this week's podcast and Substack guest. a former Washington Post reporter who was developing narratives and storytelling that connects mental health and news and messaging. Fascinating woman. I look forward to doing more with her going forward. Next week's podcast guest is a scholar, Stu Schulman, who had a company that was able to sift and track data on Twitter and was able to track the first posts about QAnon and all the hashtags and how it went viral. I see something on the screen, but it's too small for me to read. So if I can ask my people to make it larger, then I can share it with you and read it. In the meantime, I would like to say categorically that we don't have a choice but to be in active resistance. And to be in active resistance includes not self-censoring. I'm encountering people who are afraid to say anything. Hey, Tony, can you make the question on the screen bigger, please? I can't read it. It's too small. Thanks. Oh, it just disappeared. We'll figure out how to get it into a readable size shortly. And what else do I want to say that's happening? Yeah, people need to be less listening to the news all day long because it's really toxic. It's oriented with AI to be emotionally laden up. Great, that's perfect size. Thank you, JC. The passivity of the Democrats, civic groups, and independents right now is stunning. We've had a few small protests, but most people are shrugging it off in a sort of denial. How to motivate resistance? Great question. I can tell you that I attended a town hall that my Congressman Jim McGovern had on Saturday. It was supposed to be an hour, went for 3 hours, and he listened to everybody's comments. The church was packed to the gills. And then there was a protest on Monday, on President's Day, here in Massachusetts in Springfield, led by, I believe, Indivisible. And then Jim did a virtual town meeting in the evening that I attended. And he wants to hear ideas, and it seems like the cure is going to be bottom up. We've been waiting for the Democrats and the leaders to do stuff, but I heard that Jamie Raskin is leading the legal efforts to sue, to do everything possible because he was a constitutional law professor. So they're doing that. Oh, I should also say Jim McGovern said that he is talking about having me come and speak to their caucus. But I'll believe it when it happens. And so really what I want to say is we need bottom up organizing and start locally. I interviewed Christopher Goldsmith, who does Veterans Against Fascism and Task Force Butler, great guy. And he's telling people, like, organize a local anti-fascist book club in your community. And get people together and read important books that will give you information you need to understand and know about, and meet your neighbors, and let's put our resources together. We need to get more young people involved and invested. And then there's another point I wanted to make, because I'm hearing anti billionaire rhetoric, like they're all evil. And I think it's a really big mistake. There are a whole bunch of billionaires supporting Russia and fossil fuels and libertarianism and dismantling government regulations, but there are way more billionaires who are not aligned with the current administration. And the last thing we want is to demonize them. What we want is for them to be talking to each other and pulling together brilliant people who have working ideas for what to do. Like I'm one of many that I know of personally, where I want to teach people about brainwashing and mind control. I want to organize my influence continuum graphic that's on my website for free. I want people to download it, print it, make a whole bunch of copies and put it up in their communities. If they're therapists, put it up in your office, put it in libraries, put it in coffee shops, get people understanding. And maybe we can put a graphic up, Tony, of the influence continuum of ethical to unethical influence. People need, there we go. We need to, oh, that's an old one, doesn't have the QR code, but we'll get the next week. We'll get the updated one. But the point is we want people to understand all influence is not bad, and that we want to focus on trustworthy sources with informed consent that respects our conscience, that respects our authentic self, that respects rule of law, that has leadership that's psychologically healthy, not malignant narcissism, which is on the unhealthy cult leader playbook side of things. We want to teach people how to not just identify disinformation online, but we want to teach people not to amplify lies. I see people all the time taking a lie and then responding to the lie, and it's amplifying the lie instead of saying what the truth is. Anyway, Melanie Hood, how to respond to MAGA spouse who says, well, you want peace, Ukraine, don't you? You know your spouse. So who were they before they became a Trump supporter would be my question. Go back to their authentic self. Were they rule respecting and police respecting and human rights respecting? I would go back to, do we want to live in a dictatorship like Russians have to, or the Chinese people have to? And if and honestly, what helped me get out of the Moonies was learning about Chinese communist brainwashing and Robert J. Lifton's 1961 book, Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism. And in his chapter 22, he outlined 8 criteria by which any environment may be evaluated as a brainwashing environment. That's what began my reality testing. So one thing about interacting is to understand the idea of framing. So if your spouse is talking about peace in Ukraine, he's establishing the frame. And of course, the Ukrainian people are tired and they don't want war, but they were the ones who were attacked. It's their people who were attacked. Civilians were murdered by Putin because he wants to restore the glory of the Soviet Union under him. So we need to, each person will have their own areas. Some people left the MAGA cult over the pandemic and the COVID, lack of responsible work around COVID. Some people got recruited because of pandemic and propaganda. Oh, I see a question from Nicole. Steve, have you thought about partnering with activists at these protests and have them hand out your bite model, etc.? I've thought about it. And what can I say? I have a very small footprint so far. I mean, I have 115,000 followers on Instagram now, thanks to my small team who work part-time. And I'm funding it from my own consulting work, helping family members rescue loved ones and people who are exiting to recover. But I would love to get funding. I would love to partner with big organizations. We moved to Substack. We're asking people to please consider subscribing for $8 a month, and we're developing more premium content on Substack. If we can get 3,500 paid subscribers at $8, it will pay my operating expenses so we can keep messaging, and I'll be able to have more time to devote to developing a course on how to speak to MAGA folks more effectively. And if you're listening to this and you are a disillusioned GOP member who voted for Trump, and you're willing to be public, please email center@freedomofmind.com, because ideally I would love to videotape interacting with you and asking you to go back and be a MAGA supporter and role play what doesn't work and role play what might work. I think that would be the most effective thing. If not, we can have, actors and improv people who've lived with MAGA people do role playing. Let's see. Heihan Puds, is there any way us non-Americans can help others other than moral support? Um, well, I'm assuming you live in the United States, maybe, or maybe you're in Europe or somewhere else. I mean, we live in a global community now online, and and so there's lots to do. But I always recommend ready, aim, fire. That's what I say to my clients. And I'll get a client who's tried 15 things impulsively that backfired or that made things worse before they contact me. And I say, instead of just doing whatever comes into your mind out of desperation, understand the nature of the problem. Mind control is a dissociative disorder. Understand best practices of what not to do and what to do. Oh, they're in the UK. So one of my best friends is ex-Scientologist John Atack, who has a YouTube channel, and he interviews folks as well. And he's written some great books, including Opening Minds, and he wrote the definitive book about Hubbard. So I would encourage you to reach out to John and say, hey, John, what can we do in the UK? He's one of the most brilliant people I know. And back to the idea of partnering, I'd love to partner with people who have organizations already who could give us a grant or who are willing to donate a certain amount of their people power and time power to developing messaging things. I could be generating a lot of interesting videos and teaching things. I want to teach people about social psychology. Oh, Nancy Wallace, super chat, $5. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it. And come to freedomofmind.com, download the bite model and the influence continuum. If you're a lawyer or a judge or someone interested in the law, read my doctoral dissertation. It's up there for free. We have a Spanish edition as well. We have a Spanish translation of the bite model and influence continuum for free, also on Freedom of Mind. And we have a translation coming in Spanish of combating. But really, it's going to be a bottom-up movement that is going to get us through the next few years. And I don't think being in wishful thinking mode or being in denial about how bad things are is going to work anymore. So if you have family and friends who are like, oh, I don't listen to the news, it's too depressing, and they just watch movies, say, you know what? If you love your life, if you love your children, your grandchildren, if you want a planet that's sustainable for human life, please get involved. And if they're doing nothing, ask them to commit 5 hours a week. Start small, but do something. And we don't want people to be lonely. We don't want people to feel hopeless. So go dancing, listen to music, listen to poetry readings. If you're a creative artist, do creative things that will motivate people. I watched this fantastic series, I think it was on Apple TV, of 1971, when music changed the world. And it featured Bob Dylan and so many other folk singers, Joni Mitchell, and bands like the Beatles, who got involved in fighting censorship, women's rights, gay rights. So I think we want to get the best of humans working collaboratively together to come up with solutions. And I'm a love guy. People laugh when I say that, but I really believe this in my heart. Yes, I'm a therapist, but I've seen it. Love is stronger than mind control, and love is even stronger than fear. If you love somebody, you're going to really give a tremendous amount of time and energy and effort for your loved one. And for those people who've given up on their loved ones because they've been involved with the cult for a few years, it's like, please, that's nothing. I've helped people get out after 30 years of groups or longer. Let's see, Michael. The reason why MAGA exists is because it's so much fun being a hypocrite. You can get away with anything when you're a hypocrite. Crime in the end does pay when you can get away with it. Well, that's a point of view. Um, I guess what I want to say in response to about hypocrisy, because it's been on my mind a lot, is outing Elon Musk, who said, I'm for free speech, but he's suing people who are saying bad things about Tesla. So if he's for free speech, why is he suing them into silence? And the Coke Corporation has been funding Fire, saying we need free speech. But when it comes to speaking critically about the Coke corporate empire and their fossil fuel ambitions and their libertarian ideology, that's not cool. So they're not for free speech. They just want to control us. And that's not okay. We want to have respectful free speech. Shannon, totally appreciate facts about Trump being a Russian asset. Please come to my Substack, put in Craig Unger, and you'll see a 2-part video interview with Craig and Yuri Shvets, this former KGB official. The book's excellent. But there are many people that I've talked to who are Russian experts, former intelligence agents who understand how much Russia has infiltrated our government. I don't know if people understand, but Hansen was the FBI head of counterterrorism Russia department, and he worked for Russia, and he was Opus Dei. Oh, that reminds me, another thing I wanted to talk about is Opus Dei. So, a very important book by Gareth Gore, and that's another interview I have on my Substack about his book called Opus. And this is a Catholic authoritarian cult that thinks the Pope is satanic. And they've been behind the Manhattan Declaration, which was the connection to Protestants to go against abortion rights, gay rights, and the separation of church and state. That's in my book, The Cult of Trump. Opus Dei is behind Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society and the 6 Supreme Court justices being put in place who swore that Roe v. Wade was law, and then they undermined that. In other words, they lied. And the Heritage Foundation Project 2025 is Opus Dei. And I just did a short video that I put on my social media about a 4-part docuseries about how I left Opus Dei. And it tells the story of 13 women who were recruited as minors and labor trafficked. And as you listen and watch this thing, if you're an ex-JW, an ex-Mormon, ex-Scientologist, if you were born in a mind control authoritarian religion, you will relate to this docu-series 100%. Let's see, Nancy Wallace, 6 of us from church committed to bi-monthly gatherings and carpooling to protests and other events for our own mental health. People have expressed getting hurt by a MAGA at the protest. Yeah, I really think getting together with other like-minded people, because what works best is feeling like you're doing something, and not just feeling like you're doing something, but doing something that's going to be a plus, and not feeling alone. So I went to these meetings with Jim McGovern. I'm wanting to build a community here in Northampton of activists in Western Massachusetts. And I'm hoping to get my message out across the US and around the world, because this is a worldwide movement to authoritarianism. And if you haven't heard the term BRICS, BRICS, look it up, because that's the countries that have aligned together. I think of the Axis countries during the Hitler era, the Allies versus the Axis powers. Well, BRICS is against NATO and against the United States and other human rights law-abiding countries. Let's see, Niraj Joshi, any comment on the arrest of Jack Lasota? I haven't heard of Zizians until recently. I've been getting so many requests for interviews, and I have declined them so far because I'm concerned that the Trump administration is going to use the fact that Jack is trans, and many of the other people in his cult were transsexuals that were involved in these murders. And I'm for human rights, and everything that I've studied so far about this, it is a mind control cult. I will be writing something, applying my bite model to the Zizians. I'll probably put it on my Substack and make a video. But what I don't like about the media is they cherry pick. They'll interview me for an hour and they'll take a minute quote out of context. And what I want to say to everybody is reality is complex. It's not a binary of all or nothing, good versus evil, black and white. I do think it's a mind control cult that was turned into extremists on the left. And that's what I want to say at the moment. Let's see, Geo Tandy, I'm concerned about the perception of us Americans and the hyper-individualistic and cult-like movements expanding into power. How do we build trust and respect internationally? Oh my God, I just interviewed Macheta Shaka, who wrote a book. Let's see, I have the notes because I just interviewed her yesterday. She wrote The Tech Coup, How to Save Democracy from Silicon Valley. She is the International Policy Director at Stanford University Cyber Policy Center, International Policy Fellow at Stanford's Institute for Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence, and she's a former member of the European Parliament. And she was talking, because she's in Europe, when Vance came over and spoke, and she said people are in tears and they can't believe that this current administration is reversing all the decades of great relationship and collaboration that has been established since the end of World War II. And so, I think the Europeans understand that there are more Americans that don't like Trump than voted for him. He won by slim pickings in several battleground states. And I do believe there was voter suppression, large scale, as well as manipulation of algorithms on social media. I was aware of messaging to Jewish people that Kamala Harris, if you vote for her, you're voting for Hamas, and messaging to Muslim Americans, a vote for Kamala is a vote for the destruction of the Palestinians. And so that's interference with elections. And Musk is interfering with the German elections. And they really are not happy at all about it. So what I'm trying to convey is right now the world has always looked to America as the foundation for doing the right thing, even though we have our own bad history of doing bad things, for sure, like supporting dictators, etc. But let's raise our voices, and I really do believe. I know it sounds self-promoting. Read The Cult of Trump. Like, get it on audio if you don't like to read books, but read it because it still holds up fundamentally. And then join our Substack and read all of the interviews I've done subsequently to continue my research on the cult of Trump. Let's see, Tracy. I appreciate you, Dr. Hassan. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate you back. Thank you for speaking out about Putin and Russia. As a Brit, I find it so disappointing that so many Americans don't recognize that Putin has infiltrated U.S. politics. Yes, me too. I've been banging that drum for a long time, and people have been in wishful thinking mode, or just like it's impossible. And but I'm telling you, hearing Trump today say that Zelensky is a dictator when he should be saying Putin's a dictator, he's just, a mouthpiece for Vladimir Putin and propaganda. And so, if at any point now Americans are thinking that Putin's a nice guy, and Trump is going to actually put America first, no, he's putting Russia and China first. And China is in there, by the way, because of Musk's power, and Musk has a long-term relationship with China as well. Keith, MAGA adherents seem to have regressed to elementary schoolyard bullying behaviors, while these are adults and seniors. How do we break this spell? What doesn't work is attacking Trump policies, um, activities with facts and rationality. You need to understand what's happened to their minds. And if you know these people before they got radicalized, then you'll know their value system. If they were a Christian and they believed in the New Testament, and you're not into Christianity, find the Christian. There are many that are speaking out against Christian nationalism and dominionism and New Apostolic Reformation, which are all cult-like authoritarian groups that are about power, money, and control of people's sexuality and bodies. So what I'm trying to say is that in my experience helping people, and it's going to be 49 years and a couple more months, in May is when I got deprogrammed from the Moonies. In 49 years of working with different people, I can tell you that each person has their own formula for what it's going to take, the steps for them to realize for themselves. But that's the key. Asking questions with respect and curiosity, being a good active listener, and they will tell you what they will need in order to get out. So if you think about what are they missing that if they had it, they would leave, or what's blocking them? And for a lot of people, it's face saving. They already have doubts, but they're afraid to admit it because they don't want people to say, I told you so, it was a cult, which is what some of my family and friends, not many, but a few, said to me when I got out of the Moonies, and it just made me feel like crap. My next door neighbor, Monica, my oldest friend, my childhood friend, she said she baked me cookies and said, "Welcome home." Still brings me to tears when I remember that gesture, that just kindness, that love was incredibly powerful. And that's what another reason why I'm encouraging former cult members, people who moved to the United States from a dictatorship, share your story of what it's like to live under authoritarian mind control, because it sucks. It sucks worrying about being turned in if you break a rule or something. Oh, I want to share a quick story Jim McGovern, my congressman, shared at the town hall on Saturday. He told a story about, in being in Congress and needing to go out to get a sandwich and a drink, and he ran into a Republican colleague and invited him to have a sandwich and have a drink with him, and this man did it. And Jim then said a few days later, this person said, I got into a lot of trouble because people saw us sitting together and they attacked me that I was colluding with the enemy. And this is what my congressman told me. And this is exactly what happens in cults like the Moonies or Scientology or any number of other authoritarian cults, where you have this information control and behavior control and thought control and emotional control. David Thor, we do. Should Americans wish to leave, Sweden will open her arms to you. Thank you. So all I can say is, I'm hoping that it won't be necessary for me to move from the United States, but um, what I predict is going to be coming down the pike is banning books. So if you're interested in my books, I would buy them sooner than later. And they historically, when coups happen, they round up scholars, experts, and they throw them in jail or do lawsuits or whatever. Hope it doesn't happen to me. I think there are lots of people that the Trump cult will go after before me. But if you have contacts in the Swedish government, please email center@freedomofmind.com. I don't really have a plan of where I would go to, honestly, because I want to be here. I want to stand up against this tyranny. Let's see, Margaret Jones. Hi, Dr. Hassan. Appreciate your work. Thank you, Margaret. How do bad actors use free speech as a tool for manipulation? I'm concerned about how Elon claims to support free speech, but largely uses it to platform hate. Um, well, this is about understanding mimetic warfare, use of memes. Another term is psychological warfare techniques. And as I wrote in The Cult of Trump, the bad actors project onto their opponents what they're doing. So they don't like people calling out Trump and Musk for bad behaviors, so they frame it as a free speech issue. But when it comes to people actually saying Tesla is a sucky car and my relative got in an accident because the brakes didn't work, and him suing them, that's called hypocrisy. I will say Jim McGovern urged us to stay on X rather than cede all of the messaging to the bad actors, but many people I know have gone to Blue Sky. I've have an account now at Blue Sky. You can look me up, Cult Expert. I think it's at cultexpert.freedomofmind.com, and follow me there. But I'm still posting on X, even though I've lost some 10,000 followers. I'm down to 70,000 on X at the moment. But I'm doing more on Instagram. I'm doing LinkedIn messaging. Robin asks, is there a connection between Christian nationalism and Opus Dei? Are they both behind the Heritage Foundation? We know that the Opus Dei influenced the head of the Heritage Foundation, who is behind Project 2025 for sure. The idea with all of these extremist Christian groups is they're not following Jesus's teachings of it, as you love the least in my kingdom, you love me, you serve me. They are about power, money, and control of sexuality. I write about New Apostolic Reformation. In fact, I've interviewed Frederick Clarkson, who's been following right-wing Christian nationalist groups for 40 years. He actually interviewed me when I got out of the Moonies. I've interviewed Andre Gagne, who is himself a pastor of a New Apostolic Reformation church, who left and became a Bible scholar up in Canada. He's been messaging as well. I interviewed Amanda Tyler, a Baptist lawyer who wrote a book, How to End Christian Nationalism. So that's on my Substack as well. I'm really trying to find the best voices, scholars, former members to share with my network. Lily Smith, thank you for your work, Dr. Hassan. Having a smart, soft-spoken expert around to talk to us is very encouraging, helps my mental health. Thank you. You know, this is what keeps me going, hearing from people who say, your book saved my life, I left this cult, or hearing your live stream or listening to your podcast has really helped me. That's what keeps me going, because trust me, I hear bad things. People attack me all the time. I'm aware of a Russian cult that was started by Russia in Ukraine that has their sights on me. I think it's called Creative Society or Allatra. And I watched a portion of an 8-hour propaganda video, AI video, and I'm in like hour 5. And they say that I'm the head of an international anti-cult terrorist network. And they cite my book, The Cult of Trump. So don't be shocked if you start hearing attacks specifically about me being a terrorist. And what I say about people in cults is it's up to them if they want to leave or not. But I do believe people should have informed choice. And I do believe that if people learn social psychology and they study Chinese communist brainwashing and pimps and traffickers and apply my bite model of authoritarian control, you're giving them the tools to reality test their own experience. And I'll say one more thing before I get to Ribbit, too. When you're in a healthy group and you have questions, they listen to your questions and answer your questions. And if you want to read something critical against the leader of the doctrine of the group, nobody stops you or chastises you or reports you. But if you go to the other side of the bite model, they say that they're your family, they say you're a friend, but the minute you start questioning, you become the enemy and they turn on you. They tattle on you and they turn on you. And I wrote about what happened with David Weissman in the cult of Trump. He actually was a self-professed MAGA troll, and it was the comedian Sarah Silverman who he was trolling one particular day. And she actually responded to him and said, "Oh, you're a veteran. Thank you for your service." And he was blown away that this celebrity even paid attention to him. And then she did the strategic approach that I recommend. And I'm sure she hadn't read my book at that point, but maybe she has now. But she said, so what's your solution for these armed rifle attacks at schools? I'd be very interested in your solution. And nobody asked David what his solution was, and it made him think. I haven't thought about what might solve the problem of school shootings. And it got his wheels turning. And then his comrades were like, why are you being nice to Sarah Silverman? And they turned on him, and that propelled him out of the MAGA cult. And so it becomes very obvious that this is an authoritarian mind control cult, and they don't really like you. They want obedience and loyalty, which is what Trump is insisting on all of the people that he's putting into place. Except I'm not sure Elon Musk is going to be obedient to Donald Trump. He might be obedient to Putin. I'm not sure. I think Musk and Thiel have their own agenda, and they were fellow travelers, but I think at a certain point there might be a big clash internally. It appears Bannon hates Musk, which is interesting. I abhor Bannon and his war room crap and creating chaos. Anyway, Ribbit 2. What is a good argument against those who say us who are calling this a constitutional crisis are the ones in the cult? This is a great question and comment, and this is part of psychological warfare. So the minute I published The Cult of Trump, I was accused of being in the cult of Soros. And I was accused of being brainwashed by the libtards. And to which, when I was accused of that, I said, really? Tell me what brainwashing is. I thought I knew what it was, but explain how I've been brainwashed. Or I'm in the cult of Soros. I've been trying to get George Soros's attention for years. Never had any access to that. Boy, would I like his funding. You know, so the use of humor. But the point is that if you understand psychological warfare and you understand who is indoctrinating the people who are in the MAGA cult, there is messaging to counter it, but it should not be an argument back and forth. It should be questions and reflections. And I say publicly, you people who follow me for a while, hey, change my mind. Recruit me. Tell me why I should believe that Donald Trump is for America first. I really would like to hear this. And what you understand and you ask questions of MAGA people is they're repeating little snippets that have been installed in their brains, but there's no depth to it. They haven't really thought about what they're espousing. And that's why engagement and active listening and saying, I'm prepared to change my mind, but let's discuss it, and not settling for thought terminating cliches and do the research, and 400 YouTube videos. No. Give me one. Let's watch it together and discuss it. Then it'll be my turn to share something. Let's watch it together and discuss it. And we'll go back and forth. That's what works. Let's see, K-City B Fly. To those in other countries saying they are with us during this time, thank you. I thank them, you too. People around me act like things are normal or they are MAGA. It all feels surreal. Honestly, I'm past it feeling surreal. It's why, and my family and friends have been like, Steve, you got to not work so many hours. Don't feel like this is all on your shoulders. And I say, I'd like to feel that way, but who else has 50 years of firsthand experience working in this field? I'm not seeing anybody else. So until I can transmit my knowledge and do more books and courses, I have a 9-hour course online for people to learn as well. And we're planning to do more courses. I'm going to keep going. And I think about people in Ukraine needing to fight for their lives and their land. And I'm lucky. I'm in a warm, heated apartment in Northampton. I have food, I have clothing, I'm safe. I'm not worried about bombs going off. So I feel very blessed and fortunate. And I just feel like this is what I'm meant to do right now. Benjamin says, thank you for doing what you're doing. Again, it really means a lot to me. And I'm telling you, my team, some are volunteers, some are interns, some are part-time employees of Freedom of Mind. Um, it really means a lot to us that we're doing something important and meaningful to preserve the hard-fought liberties that we have accomplished in decades past. And I can tell you the Bite model can be applied to Black Americans, the slave Jim Crow era. Go through the Bite model. It fits. Indigenous people and religious schools that kidnap their children. Apply it. It does. It works. It's a model. It will help you see. I'm looking at the time. Please download the Influence Continuum graphic from my website. Consider making copies, passing them out, asking people to post it with you, organize. And I'm all for, if people want to do a book club, I certainly have a whole bunch of incredibly important books that I recommend. Just look at my Substack and people that I've interviewed, and read the books that are calling to you to read in that order. And with that, I'm going to thank my team and sign off for today. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do next Wednesday at 1. We may have to try to do something on Thursday. I'm doing some work next week, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it. But the idea is to try to do more live streams, and maybe not hour-long ones, but shorter ones. But they're going to be recorded. So if you can't tune in live and ask questions, you can come to our YouTube or the other places and catch up and follow us on social media. I appreciate it. So thank you all, and breathe and know you're not alone. And let's organize together. Thanks.